Hey, what's up, dudes? Alright, let's do a little coding this afternoon. Oops. Oops, that was not good. So I actually did a lot yesterday off stream. I just coded. And it was nice, honestly. I think I'm going to start doing that more. Just felt really good. I mean, it's more relaxed, not as productive, but alright, so what did we get done? Well, we got a lot done. Specifically, we did all kind of stuff. We continued review of server. We added code in server, creating other client forfeit bool lock because the other client forfeit bool is a thread shared object. We added code in server, adding said lock acquisition and release in proper locations. We deleted the hash token validate received client token string function as it was deemed unnecessary. We modified code in the entire project to change reconnect port to reconnect port int. Was it necessary? Maybe. Probably not. Modified code in the entire project to change game ID to game ID integer. Modified VS Code JSON settings to cause search find highlighted objects. Modified VS Code JSON settings to cause search find highlighted objects to be light purple and off-white for all found objects and currently found object respectively. Yeah, so that was cool. And we stopped at line 10 and things to do. So let's go over there and pick up. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is do immediately below to do task. Okay. Which is modify file name, apply receive data function to handle received data. Since we added more functions to the file, change the name of the file. And that's because we're going to create the remove from sent data storage dictionary function for sent data storage depopulation. It replaces previously implemented filter storage dictionary sections in server and client. This way it always happens is in one place and reduces clutter in the main files. Let's see, add code in handle receive data py to create remove from sent data storage dictionary for sent data. Alright, so I think that's true. We're gonna do that. We're gonna have the remove from sent data storage dict function get created, and the proper place for that would be handle received data. Yeah, that makes sense. So let's go over there. We're gonna change this name to handle received data. Extension pylons wants to make refactoring changes with this file move. Show preview. Oh, so it's automatically gonna change the client and server import name since we renamed the file. Well, that's cool. It automatically changed it for me. Cool. That's nice. Alright. So that's done. And why is this? yeah, we forgot to set our timer here, so let's do that. Let's see, we're 5 minutes in, so we're gonna set it to 63. About 63, I would say. Alright, timer started. Let's see if our audio is working. Yeah, that works. Alrighty then. Alright, so handle receive data, and next is going to be add code in handle receive data to create remove from send data storage dict function for send data storage dict depopulation. So let's go over there. Let's go down here. Remove from. Oh, this is this the function? Remove from sent data storage. Yeah, okay, cool. Finish creating it to handle the received data. Finish creating it to handle received data to be imported into both server and client for removing data that has been verified via receive verification. Replaces the filter storage dict sections inside of server and client. Already removed it from server. Alright, so yeah, after they receive, they're gonna call this function. So in server and pi, we need to add the function call. So let's open up, let's copy the function first, and this is gonna be from handle receive data. So if we go over here, we'll go to the top, and we're gonna say from handle receive data import apply receive data function and remove from sent data storage dict function. And we could change this name to be depopulate, couldn't we? Damn, that's really hard to actually read. Kind of sucks. It's a little too white, huh? I tried to get the colors right, but because you couldn't tell the difference. Let me go ahead and change that. Let's open these settings, and it's the workbench editor. Well, it's not this. Is it this? No, this ain't it. Editor find match highlight background. Oh no, this is it. Why is it? Oh, we forgot our comma. Oh, so it wasn't even working correctly. Right, okay, here we go. So this one needs to be like, just make it a little darker, maybe that'll fix it. No, I feel like that's worse. Can we do a side by side? Let's do that. Let's see here. Let's see. Alright, now let's pick out the right. Like, see if we can get this right. Okay, so it does change in live. Oh no, there it goes. Okay. Well, that's definitely too dark. that is still hard to read, honestly. And then all the way, and we need a contrast. Like, what is a good color? What is a good color to contrast with this? Like, I wanted to match the purple because we're using purple, but I wanted it to be light enough to where it's different from the I mean, that's okay. That one's still hard to read, but it's better. Is darker better? I feel like darker... Yeah, I guess that's okay, right? But then if we do... well, not... I mean, this is better. I just feel like that purple is kind of... I mean, it's fine. Yeah, it's good. The purple's good. It jumps out enough. I don't want it to really jump out that much, but I do want the highlighted one to really jump out. I feel like that's pretty good. I feel like that... We could honestly maybe even go just a hair darker. I don't know if that's going to be better. Let's go lighter. And that's worse. And then if we go darker, that's better. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. We can just go a hair lighter, just a little bit, so it's a little brighter. That's fine. Okay, we'll leave it like that. Alright, and alright, so let's change the name of it. We're gonna change it to, how about depopulate? Yeah, we'll just say depopulate. We can say depop. Or filter. We could say filter. But I like filter implies... Filter isn't really an accurate description as to what's happening. It doesn't actually filter it. It's just depopulating. And depopulate's good. That's fine. We'll leave it like that. So now let's go... Just one other... Oops. I typed the wrong thing. Let's change this to depopulate sent data storage state function, and then this is just gonna be, we'll leave that. Now do Control Shift F. Let's go back over here. Okay, so we have it imported. We're gonna need to import it into server as well. How is this still? Did I not? There it is. So now we go to server. Go to the top. We're going to import this as well. So we'll do from, what is this? Control Shift E. And it goes handle receive data. import depopulate sent data storage dict function. Alright, so now we have to create the function. So let's see, finish creating it to handle receive data to be imported into both server and client for removing data that has been verified via a receive verification. Replaces the filter storage dict sections inside of server and client. So it's already been deleted from server, and we'll need to delete that section from client. Let's see if we have that on the to-do. To delete the filter, yeah, we do have it right there. Okay, that's going to be our next thing. So let's go ahead and see how would we implement this function. Well, let's look for receive verification. I guess this is server, right? Yeah. So what does this do? This is the transfer send data storage dict. And this is verify this data structure is necessary and properly used for deleting sent data from associated sent data storage dict after receive verification received in the transfer list. Yeah, so we're gonna make this to where it automatically happens whenever we receive data. It automatically happens. What's this here? That's our notes. Add code to trigger the end of this game with receive verification. No, we don't need that. Data will be in one of three formats: sender ID, send ID, change attribute list, received send ID. And if it's the send ID, that's for receive verification. And that's what we're looking for. So let's and honestly we could probably just have a dictionary to refer to this object, like to the type, to be faster, like instead of checking to see the type. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's fast as well. We're not really worried about that right now. Let's continue. So core data, if type of core data is equal to int receive verification, and then we would delete the transfer sent data storage dictionary, which takes core data. Okay, so when we receive this data, well, this is from the transfer, so we don't directly receive, but we do handle it in transfer. So this would have to be handled here as well, because we don't actually receive it in this thread. The other thread client receives it, and then we populate it in the transfer list and handle it as if it was just received normally. So this will be well, I mean, this is really simple, honestly. Look at that. Look how simple that code is. It's just one line of code. I'm not sure we could do better than that. I mean, that's pretty simple. I don't know. I don't know if I want to change that. We might leave that as is. Okay, so this is a different section here. Let's open that up a little further. And we don't need the terminal right now. There we go. All right. So right here, receive verification. Alright, so C1 receive data equals pickle loads ink data. Okay. And this is for, yeah, this is depopulate descent data storage. Yeah, right. That's what we want to handle. And then, like, wouldn't we want to, we would want to have a receive verification for every send, right? And if we lost the receive verification over the sending side, like if we requested data that got lost, and then that data got lost somehow over the network, the while loop would cause it to be redone again, right? Yeah. So then they would re-request it automatically. Like, we don't have to really add any code for that. I don't think, anyway. Let's see here. So here's the receive verification send ID. C1 to C1 send ID. What's going on? We have, with the receive data, we get the int if it's a list. So if we received a list and we're client 1, how do we know it's C1 to C1? How do we know it's not C1 to C2? Oh, right, because they don't, that's handled in the transfer list. Okay. True. Got it. Alright. Then, and I'll say, we know it's C1 to C1 because C2 never sends to C1. It sends to C2 server side and gets put in transfer list. It's handled there. Alright. So the receive cal 2 plus we have the receive verification send ID. So every time we have a send, every single send, we have a new send ID, right? Like it doesn't matter what we're sending. We always have a new send ID. True. Okay. That's fine. So if the type of the core data is receive verification, we get the intended recipient. Okay. And then if the intended recipient is equal to 1, we say that the sent data storage is equal to C1 to C1 sent, and the received is the C1 to C1 received. Okay. Well, and then what? What do we do then? So the intended recipient is one. That means it's us. It's extended for us. Then the sent data storage stick is C1 to C1 sent data. And we're probably going to get rid of the received. Okay. And then it just says the same thing but for 2. That's fine. And then we have if type of core data is equal to int or type of core data is equal to string. If core data is receive verification. That's the same thing. And then we have if type of core data is list. Okay. And then in case of receiving receive verification or resend request, if intended recipient is equal to client 1 or 2 int, if type of the core data is equal to int in case of receiving receive verification. And then all we do is delete the sent data storage sticks at core data. I mean, honestly, that's fine. I don't know. I don't know if I actually want to modify that. If that's it. If that's all that it is, I don't really need to change that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's actually even better. I don't really think we could. I don't think we could improve upon that with a function, honestly. I assumed that we could because I thought it was just more code. But if it's that simple, yeah, I mean, if it's that simple, it's that simple. That's pretty easy, dude. That's... Yeah, I don't think I want to change that. It's the same thing. It's just 2 lines here. And, I mean, we'd still have to have one of the lines. We would just call a function which literally just ran that. And then we wouldn't know what the transfer data storage object was. That, you know, gets assigned and stuff up here. Yeah, I just feel like, honestly, I don't think we need it. There's nothing wrong with that. That system works pretty good, and it's not cluttered or anything. I mean, the file is cluttered, but that's not really something we can change. Like, well, I'm sure we could make minor improvements, but the code's got to exist. Receive verification send ID. So we get the proper send ID, we increment it. And then we would send out our receiver. Where do we actually send out the receive verification? Sends out received. Here it is. So this is where we send it out. Pre-serialized data. So that's going to be changed. This section is going to be modified because we want to always send out receive verification regardless. Yeah. So it doesn't matter. So this section is only sending it out if it's a list, but we would actually want it to send it out regardless. Yeah, I'm not gonna like refactor all this. This though is gonna be changed because we're just gonna add it to where it sends out receive verification like in a different spot. It's gonna call it immediately, well, not necessarily immediately after receiving, but it's gonna happen no matter what. It's not going to be conditional. So we would like do it probably like right up in here. We'd just say we get our receive verification send ID, and then because we need that, and then we send out the receive verification for whatever it is that we received. Yeah, because we do need and should we store the yeah, I guess we should have the system work with everything gets resent if it wasn't received. Or everything gets stored in the sent data storage dictionary. And then on the receiving end, they're going to just receive an order of the receive verification ID, or rather the send ID. And that send ID is going to be incremented every single time, and it's going to be attached to each send to the other side, and they're going to expect it in a particular order. And if it's not in that proper order, they're not going to apply it. Maybe. I'm not. We have to test that. But with this task, with the depopulate the sent data storage dict, at least for server, I don't think we need to. I don't think we need to do that. I don't know. Let me see here. So maybe what if we put it up here to where every time we received we would automatically well, we would only want to depopulate it in the case that it was a sent receive verification. So if we did it up here at this spot universally, well, we would just be checking for the type of the data. I mean, I would love to simplify this section. Yeah. Because currently here, let's see. Let's just say if I checked the type of the data first, we just receive it right up here, and then we go ahead and we immediately check the type to see if it's a receive verification. If it's a receive verification, we would then go ahead and remove it from the proper sent data storage dictionary. Like, why do we have to? Why do we have to like do all this other stuff before we remove it? Like, why couldn't it be just right here in this else, where if it's not a type of the core data is equal to list, that means it's a receive, it could be a receive verification. We check the type here, and then we just bam, we remove it from the sent data storage dict. Like, couldn't we just do this right here? Like right at this point in time, we just say bam. And then if the intended recipient was 2, which it was the other client, couldn't we just remove it from their storage dictionary, and we could just share the storage dictionaries? I think we created the transfer list. Yeah, well, we created the transfer list to. I think it was for performance purposes. To avoid race conditions. But honestly, whenever we touch the transfer dictionary or the transfer list, isn't that like, that's a race condition in and of itself? So if we already have this race condition going on between the transfer list, like, isn't it at that point just a middleman? Is it not just bloat at that point? Now you could say, well, that reduces the amount of it reduces the amount of locked objects like that we have to lock, because we need the transfer list for whenever data needs to be applied to the other client, right? So like, if client 1 sends client 2 data from the server to the client, so going from 1 server side to 2 client side 2 can only send it back to server side 2, and then server side 2 has to transfer it to server side 1. But like, what data would that be? I know it would be receive verification, but what about like, would it ever send any other type of data? Well, would it ever send any data that the client 1 actually needs? That would be, like, you know, important to the client 1. But really, I don't think that's the way that our game works. I think whenever the client changes something on the client side, it's never actually changing like it doesn't actually change the visible things like the name, the deck, etc., etc. It only changes things that contribute to calculating the final result on its end. So it's not, it's like you don't really need it on the server, do you? Well, I mean, the server needs it, and then so like for the name, when they create their name, the client types in input and then hits enter. That entered input becomes final input. Final input gets sent over to the server, gets received, and then it translates that final input into the new player's name. And when that change happens, that P1 name or whatever, if it was P2, that triggers the data transfer for the P1 name to the other client. Well, it actually sends it to both of them, because now it's like, okay, you gave me this input, I asked for your name, you gave me that input, now I'm gonna pass you what your input gets turned into, and that's your name object. So here's your name object, and it passes that to the client that put the input, and it passes it to the other client. Now, I don't actually think that the I'm getting excited. I think I might be able to get rid of some of this code, this transfer list, maybe. So I don't think we actually send data or modify any data from the client side that would require the other client to receive it. Like, if it's something that's visible, like the hand, their meld, their score, stuff like that, that's gonna get calculated on the server side, and whenever if the data point change happens on the server, that's what triggers data transfer. It's like an automated system I have set up to where whenever the server side changes a piece of data that the clients need, it will automatically send it to them. And long story short, I don't think that the client side ever makes that data point change that would need to be transferred to the other client. And that's ultimately the question, is does that happen? And if it doesn't happen, well, we don't actually need the transfer list, because if the only thing, well, the only two things that, well, it could be a resend request. If they didn't receive, if C1 server side sent to C1 and 2 client side, but only one of them received it. If client 2 didn't receive it, they'd have to send a resend request, and that would get routed to the client 2 thread, and then we would pass it over to the transfer list. Or we could send that data from this client. We would just have to access the other client thread's storage dictionary, and then we would transfer it that way. Now, we could do that because that does skip a step, it skips the step of having to, it's instead of having to put it in the transfer, get the resend request, put it in the transfer list, get the other thread to check the transfer list, look at the resend request, and then access their storage dict and resend that data. You would basically just cut out the transfer list, and then in that point the actual storage dictionary would be the multi-thread object that we would have to put a lock on, instead of using a lock on the transfer list. So we could do it that way. Like technically we could just completely get rid of the so for receive verification we could just access the dictionary directly, like right at this point in time. It would be very convenient and it would be very easy to understand. There's not like multiple points of action. It's not like handing it to here and handing it here and then that. It's just receiving it, checking it, and then deleting it from the storage dictionary if it's a receive verification for the other client thread, because they can still access that object. I mean, that's one of the benefits of using threading as opposed to multiprocessing. You still have access to the same storage. So receive verification, safe. Resend request, also you could do that from this storage dictionary. Again, safe. And now the final thing would be actual game change data. In that case, we would say if it was actual game data that it's requesting to be sent to the other client, well, I mean, that is indeed how we transfer data from the server side in the first place. So the idea that we would need to actually transfer it from one client to another to just send it cross, from 1 to 2 or 2 to 1, server side to client side, like we already do that. So that isn't like even a change in how we just operate from an organization like perspective, because the transfer list does add a layer of just like, it's nice and organized, right? Like it's clean because it's a separate entity that handles the cross client data handling. But if I'm honest, I just feel like I really would like to get rid of bloat in this code, in this project. So I would prefer to just not even have it. Like, if it's a middleman, I think it's better ultimately, the final product, if you can reduce your code by like 20% of the entire project. And even if it's a little less like quote unquote clean, it's not like rocket science, it's not going to be super hard to understand. You're just going to say, oh, the intended recipient was the other client, and then you access the storage dictionary with a race condition using a lock. There's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine. So I think I'm going to add that as a to-do. I'm not actually going to change that. Um, but I will add that as a thing to do. So let me add this. We'll say review code associated with transfer list. I think that's what it's called. Yeah. The C1, the transfer list. Possibly unnecessary. And I really don't like extra, bloat. It's just bloat. Bloat is bad. Get it out. I'm on the side of no bloat. None. Zero. I don't care if it's a little bit more complicated. Just get it out. All the bloat, get it out. Alright, so review code associated with transfer list possibly unnecessary. Review all code associated with transfer, we'll say C1 transfer list, C2 transfer list. Oh, it's C1 to C2 and then C1 to C2. See, and all of that is like, it's hard to understand just that part of it, as after moderate review deemed unnecessary. We could just access the storage dict. So we'll say for all three types of receive, we determined it would be replaced with storage dictionary operation. Well, we determined it could be removed. So for a resend request, that would instead, the receiving client thread would access the other threaded client's storage dict, or sent data storage dict, to access it with a lock to resend that data directly. And then for receive verification, the receiving client thread would access, well, it's the same exact thing. It's like literally the same exact thing. Would access the other threaded clients, send it to access with a lock to resend that data directly, or to remove that data directly from their dict. And then for regular, or we say change attribute list, quite certain we would actually never receive this data. But if we did, we could just send it, or, well, if we receive a change attribute list, I don't know, I gotta think about that for a second. Let me see, I gotta piss, I'll be back. don't know. All right. So, with this, the change attribute list, so in that case, that's just like well, we might be accessing we would be accessing like the other client thread object. So for instance, like we would be modifying the other client's the other client's game object or the other client's player object, and I think that would require us adding a lock that we don't we don't do that currently. Well, I don't know. I'm trying to think exactly how does this work currently. Like whenever if we receive data from the other client thread, or for the other client thread, currently, like, I just don't think that happens. Like, if it did happen, like, who cares? Because we're not, like, working on that, right? That's not what we're working on, so we don't need to worry about that. But, you know, if we did, we would just have to lock the object when we modified it. That's all. Because currently, like, one thread only touches P1 and P1 game, and then the other thread for client 2 only handles P2 and P2 game. And, you know, that's like part of, you know, using the different threads. So, and it's supposed to be more performant anyway. But, yeah, so I think that we would just have to really check to see if we actually do ever modify like player 2 game or player 1 game on the server side, client side, in such a way that we would need to transfer it to the server, and then the server would need to then reflect it back to the other client. And I don't think we do. That's not how it works, you know. Calculations and stuff like that, all the effects on the other player, even if it was a different type of game where, like, if they shot them in a shooting game, it would still just, it wouldn't change player 2's HP, or it would just say, yeah, you actually landed a shot on that player. It would send that to the server, and then the server itself would change the HP of that particular player, and then send the new updated HP back out to each client. So even in like a case like that, it wouldn't be necessary to do that. So yeah, I just don't think we, if we did, instead of having the transfer list, we could still just use a lock and apply the data, you know what I mean? If it was for the other client. But if we find out that, like, we don't even do that at all, which I'm like 90% sure that we don't. I can just go check quickly, and once we verify that we don't, then we don't have any good reason to keep the transfer list. And then at that point, I think the transfer list really just does become bloat. So, yeah. And then we would want to get rid of it. So let's see. Quite certain we would actually never receive this data, but if we did, we could just send it. Well, yeah, that's right. I'm tripping. It's not even such a. Yeah, we just I don't think we do that. We just don't do it. Quite certain we would actually never receive this data, but if we did, we could just send it using a lock if it modified the other threaded client's objects, like P1 slash or P1 game, right? So yeah, that's it. That's all we needed to write. Okay. So let's go back over here. That's cool. I mean, that was a little bit of a sidetrack, but that's gonna save us potentially, you know, a whole little section of code that handles the transfer, which is like what? Right here. See this whole section? Look at this. This whole section. All this. This is what? 296 to 31. That's 35 lines or whatever. Actually, it's more because you include this little right here. That's like 40. That's like 40 lines. That's a good bit of code, you know, to just be able to delete and replace with like what? Potentially max, like maybe 5-10 lines of code max. So you're looking at an 80% code reduction. That's massive for this section or system, whatever you want to call it. So let me just. Well, we already have the to do, so we'll leave that. Going back to the initial thing, and that was the depopulating the sent data storage dict. Let's see. Server, the code for this seems fine. The only thing that I noticed that could maybe be improved would be when we received it, right up in here in the receive section, we would, let's see, so I have with conlog, if ready, header amount, right here. If we could make this to where as soon as we received it, we would check to see if it's a receive verification, and then we would immediately remove it from the associated dictionary. Because like we don't need any more information or like assignment to do that, do we? Well, we do need, the only thing that we would need is to check the type of the core data, and then let's see where we do this. The type of the core data list. So it sends out receive verification. So then we get the pre-serialized data, which is client 1 or client 2 int, the receive verification send ID, and then the send ID. And what is the send ID here? The send ID is okay, so the send ID in this case would be the well, no, that's the receive verification send ID. The receive verification send ID, which one is the one that gets removed from the, okay, so it's the receive verification send ID is the one that gets removed from the storage dictionary. It has to be added to send data storage because in case of DC we need a record of the last sent data. Oh, no, okay, that's not actually true. So this is gonna get deleted, this right here. Well, I don't know, maybe, do we need to, I don't think we need to store I'm not sure if we need to store this data in a sent data storage dict. Do we need to store receive verification sends? Do we need to store receive verification sends in the sent data storage dict? Well, I don't think we do. Yeah, because the sending side doesn't handle data restoration for the other side. That's like the receiving side handles restoration of its own data, and it's not gonna, like, why would it need, why would the other side need us, the other side from it, to store that we sent out a receive verification? So if we sent a receive verification saying, alright, they sent us this data, we received it, then we're like, hey, we got this. Now we send them out a receive verification. Okay, they send it out, or we send it out to them. Let's just say we don't store it in a dictionary. We send out receive verification, they receive it. Fine. They get their receive verification, and all that does is causes their that data to disappear from the sent storage dictionary. The other side doesn't care. Now, let's say we sent out that receive verification, but it got lost over the network or something. The client never gets it. Well, if the client never gets it, if the client never gets the data, it never receives that receive verification. All that's going to happen is it's not going to depopulate its sent data storage dict for that associated send. Now, that's really not that big of a deal. Now, then we could use a time-based system to eventually clear it. We've already been through that. Like, we were actually removed that. We had that added. Well, we had a system that was like it, but it was actually a different. It handled the entire filtering for the storage dict. Anyway, so, and I mean that would be fine to have. Like we could create an independent function in its own place and import that function and just run that function to where the clutter is lessened. That's something I want to do as well eventually, is really declutter this by putting lots of this code in a function and then calling the functions, because it becomes hard to follow and stuff reading it like this. But that's another time. So sent data storage dict, receive verification sends it out. The worst case scenario, it just remains in their sent data storage dict. No big deal, right? It's not a big deal at all. Like, and that's pretty rare anyway. I mean, like, network drops like that, that's a pretty rare thing. So just realistically, we probably won't even need that. And I'm trying to get it nice and trim. We can always come back and add later, right? Like, we can always come back and re-implement something that we deleted in a better way later. It's okay. But the question of, like, do we need to store the receive verification send inside of our sent data storage dict? I don't think we would. The only reason we would need that is if, well, and that would be like, that would actually not even be an issue. I was thinking if they received based on a send ID that incremented, then, well, we just wouldn't increment our send ID whenever we sent a receive verification. It's real simple. So that solves that problem. And I think ultimately that's just less code anyway, so that's a win-win. And send data storage to receive verification identity. So if we just didn't store it at all, worst case scenario, the only thing that's going to happen is the other side is well, like they're not going to re-request a receive verification anyway. Maybe if they never receive a receive verification, maybe they could re-request a receive verification. But it's really up to, like, receive verification is really just for clearing that send data storage dict. So I would say I don't think we need to store them at all. I think we could just get rid of that. I don't think they need to be stored. We're sending out a letter saying, hey, we got this from you. We don't really need to keep track of that. It's really just for the other side's convenience. It's not for us. They're never gonna ask for that again. And like, how would they even know how to do that? So yeah, I mean, I think straightforward. Yeah, we can just get rid of it. I'm gonna go ahead and put the note here, and then in this instance, we wouldn't want to increment. We wouldn't want to increment the send ID. Right? Yeah. Alright, so let's change this. We'll put a note here. See verification sender ID. I mean, it does require us modifying the code. Duh. But if the end result is much cleaner, I'll do it. So we'll just say below 3 lines. And I don't know. Say determined that we don't need to store sent receive verifications in the sent data storage dict for a few reasons. And we're just gonna say ultimately what do we really need to do? Well, we'll just copy this, and the actual task is going to be different. So that's a note, but the actual task is going to be to remove this storing of the receive verification send this storing receive verification send because, or not because, or and modify associated code, which increments the receive verification send ID, or rather which creates the received verification send ID, and which increments the associated CX to CX send ID. Alright, now we're going to put this on two different lines. So we got this one here, and then this one here. And then, so remove this string receive verification completely. And now I'm just going to add this to do. And we're going to make two separate ones. Boom, boom. And copy this, paste it there, copy this one, paste it there, and then we're going to change this to modify associated code which creates the receive verification send ID since we won't need it at all. Because the send ID here is actually what we're verifying that we received. If I'm pretty certain of that, yeah. Because if we say receive verification send ID is literally the send ID for the receive verification, but the we received that send ID, right? So if we have, yeah, the send ID is what we receive from them. So let me just put this, where is it here? Right here, pre-serialized send ID. And I'll just put note, note 8/16/25. The send ID here is the ID associated is the ID associated with the data that was sent to us. Yeah, so the data that was given to us, and we're verifying that we received it. So the sender is the ID associated with the data that was sent to us, which we are verifying we received. There we go. That's clean. That's alright. And then this here, remember we don't need intended recipients. That can remain an inline comment, it's fine. Well, actually, this node is like, we don't. That's goofy. We can just do an inline here because it's short. If it's short enough, you can just do an inline like this. Alright, here we go. So modify the associated code which creates the received verification send ID since we don't need it at all. Okay, true. And then we have the which increments the associated CX to CX. We'll say, so this would be remove, and then this is going to be remove code which increments, since we don't need it at all. Alright, there we go. Okay. So that's taken care of. Now, let's go back over. So let's see. We had the depopulate the send data storage addict function. There was that, as well as the moving of the section which sends out the receive verification, to where currently we do that right here. Like, we don't want to send out receive verification for every single thing, because let's just say they send data, changed game data, then we receive it, and then we say, all right, send out received verification, we got it. Then when they receive it, if they send us a receive verification for their received receive verification, then when we receive that one, well, then we're gonna have to send out a receive verification for that receive verification, and then it's just this endless thing of like, yeah, we got it, yeah, we got it, yeah, we got it, and you don't need to do that. So you only need to send out receive verification for well, really for a resend request. I don't even know if like, I don't even know if we would need to send a receive verification for a resend request. Like, if they sent us a resend request, would we need to send out a receive verification for that? We need to say, hey, yeah, I guess so, to let them know we got their request, so then they would know they don't need to send it again. So I mean, that makes sense. I mean, yeah, there could be like, there's bugs associated with the system. Like, if you really went super deep with this, the data exchange can become like very tricky. But yeah, I think we'll be fine. Okay, so sends receive verification. Blah 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 blah. All right, so I'm gonna take a break here in a minute, but I wanted to address this last thing, which was getting to the bottom of this, moving this receive verification send. Could we just remove it? Could we just do it from somewhere else? So let's see right here. If the only time, well, we want to send it for a list, if the type of the data is a list, or if the type of the data is a resend request, which is whatever the other type is. There's the three of them. So for two of the three, we would want to take care of that. And I'm looking at this. See this, how it's one or two, and then there's all these assignments, and it gets doubled. Like, do we really need to do that? Couldn't we just I don't know, I just feel like there could be a better way for that. In this receive time right here, let's see, so this is a data application buffer. It's added to the receive cal tuplets tuple element index 2, and we may implement a perfect up-to-date save system. Currently, though, we're using a periodic save point system wherein we will not be using this header. Yeah, so didn't we say? I thought we already went over that. Received time being able to be deleted. I thought we determined that the received time isn't important. Like we don't need it at all. I'll just add a note here. Review necessity of this adder line. I thought, yeah, it's no, we're just gonna see. I thought we determined this system was being removed since we have a perfect data application system using the counters. Alright, so if we were to move it, we would just go up here and see. That's another thing I wanted to see about. If we can just, instead of having, like, we have these attributes that are reflections of local variables, and I know that we added that like because we thought like we wanted it to be object oriented, but honestly it adds so much bloat, and like not everything has to be an attribute. So honestly, I would rather just like get rid of this. I really would. I would like to just get rid of the attribute altogether, since it's both not executed. Go ahead and reset some back to none. Yeah. So I'm gonna add that as a to-do. And we don't want to cut too much, but I think like we added a lot of things, and I think we could trim back, and then if we find that we need it again, we can always reacquire. So let's see. Determine whether this adder is necessary. If it's just reflection of ink data and serves no other purpose, current purpose, not like future, maybe, might purpose. I'm like, no, just if it doesn't currently serve a purpose, remove it completely. And you know, this feels pretty good. I feel like I'm making okay, like not. Progress is different. There's different types of progress. And this is, I mean, I got a good handle on this. All this stuff, like these tasks, they're gonna go, once you review the code, talk through it, the actual task itself is fast. Like the actual work of changing the code, once you know what you need to change, that's easy. It's determining what you need to change. That's the actual challenge. Like that's the real, that's where the time consumption comes in. So we're gonna do the same thing with the C2 receive data. And I just wonder if there's a way to, if there was a way to, you see how we have if client 1 or 2, and then we have else. Couldn't we just make this into one section where we receive the data, we just get inc data, we don't assign it to anything, like we just do ready 0 receive. We don't assign this to this attribute. We just say con receive header amount. Assign that to inc data directly, so we just have one line, and then all this extra shit. C1 receive data, C1 inc data, received data. Like we convert it. We call it inc data, and then we call it received data. You know, this is, I remember when I did this, I was trying to make sure we didn't lose the data. Like if we crashed, we would be able to perfectly restore it. But this was not the way. You don't need to do that, you know. It's like 5 hands reaching out for one object. You just need one hand. As soon as it gets, you know, that's it. It's that simple. When you receive it, you assign it to one variable, then you place that inside of the database, bloop, and then you continue. And if you crash after that point, you just revert back to that point in time where you had just received the data, and then start from there. Yeah, so I think like I think we can basically get rid of like all this. See this 1, 2, 3. The sender ID. Like, why do we need this? Why do we need this assigned to attributes? 1, 2, 3, 4. We would get rid of this whole else. We wouldn't even need this else. This entire section right here would be deleted, and instead we would just have, well, we wouldn't even need to check if client 1 or 2 int. We would just have inc data equals con receive, and that's it. Boom, done. How clean is that? You just got rid of like 20 lines. That's a 95% code reduction. So I'm gonna do it like this. I'm gonna do it like this. We're gonna say change this to below, and we're gonna say, well, we'll just do section, right? So, well, I guess this is the section right here, from there to there. Yeah, so we're gonna say below section. Oh yeah, this is gonna be good. Oh yeah, dude, we're about to get rid of the transfer list. We're about to get rid of this bloat. We're about to get rid of the sending out receive verification for receive verification, or we're sending out receive verification for well, storing receive verification. That's what I meant. We're gonna get rid of that. There's a bunch of stuff. We're about to get rid of like 80 lines. I'd say about 80 lines are about to just go boop, and that's gonna shorten. You know, that's a lot of code. So let's say review this entire section, as I'm pretty sure we can get rid of 90% of this code, which references adders, etc. And it's just gonna say we don't actually need to assign all this to adders. Instead, just run inc data equals con receive header amount and continue. And then if we discover a line can be deleted, we can review that attribute completely, variable completely, and remove all associated code / the entire attribute. And that will also get rid of attribute where it's defined, comments, etc. And you know, this is going to turn into, like, instead of 80 lines, that could put it up to 90, 100 lines. So it's just a lot. We're trimming this, dude. We're going through and we're getting it in its final clean state. Server was a little messy, not gonna lie. It was a little worse than I kind of like. It is a little ugly. It was bloated for sure, and we're getting rid of that bloat. And so we're gonna go ahead and take a break. I'll say the first thing that I want to do, probably, which is like the most impactful, it's usually the way I do it, unless it's something that needs to be done like ASAP. But the other thing I never really got to figuring out was, could we just move receive verification send to a different place? And like, I think we could if we just modified this section to instead just be where is it? Right here. So if this was just changed to receive inc data, and then that would be gone. We would then immediately just check for the type of the core data. Like the first thing we could do would be handle receive verification. We would just say if the type of the core data is equal to list or the other one, and then in that case we would check the client ID 1 or 2 int, and it would send out receive verification. That simple. Just boom, done. I feel like that would be so much easier than this weird, like, it's weird how, like, we string it out. Like, this is gonna get deleted anyway. The receive verification ID, that's probably gonna get deleted anyway. And I'll just make sure we do that right here. Ensure these lines get removed if we modify the associated receive verification section, which is planned. which is on the to-do list. Yeah, so make sure we get rid of those, because then, and you know, this section too, look at this. This boom and then duplicate boom again, and like this doesn't need to happen. It's all this self.receive time, received time. Like, why do we do this? This is double assignment. Boom, boom. Receive change attribute list equals this change attribute list. Receive cal tuplets equals this. No. We can make this. We can do this without adders. There's well, we'll go through and we'll figure that out. But I know some of it. I know some of it can get reworked in like this double shit. Now, as far as the receive cal tuples having to be assigned here as the C2 or the C1, that might need to remain because of like just the fact that we use the different send IDs. I mean, that does, like, that's fine. We could do that. And then the incrementing of it, that's fine too. But at the very least, the receive time, that may get deleted completely. The receive change attribute list. See this? So we have the change attribute list, and then we have the received cal tuple list. These assignments that happen. Well, we could change that to one line, right? We could do receive change attribute list, comma, receive cal tuple list equals C2 receive change attribute list, C2 receive cal tuple list. It's just getting rid of this bloat, man. There's so much of it, and I just feel like this has got to be able to be improved, like for sure. There's not even a question, man. And the location of this sender ID, well, that's fine. We do need this, but this current or other receive string, and that's fine, whatever. But I feel like we could put this maybe in a function or something. I'm not worried about that really. It's little by little, right? When it's a lot to look at, it's hard to determine. Below line, let's see this adder line. I would say below 2 lines, really, because this is. So we're gonna copy this and put this up here. Because we do need both of the receive change attribute lists. Like we can't just have one. We could, but then we would contest for it, and that would be like, that would not be optimized. I don't think. I think it's smarter to have them segregated like that. Yeah. So. Let's see, C1 self C1 equals core data. I'm not sure if we actually need that though. Like, couldn't we just operate from the core data? Why do we need why do we need to assign this to this attribute first? Why do we not just operate on it? You know what I mean? What's the point? What's the real point of that? I know one of the main points was for organization, for object-oriented programming, and also because if we needed to save it in a database, we would have, like, you know, everything listed in one place in the class definite initializer or whatever, with all the attributes listed that like pertain to all the important data points. But I just feel like there's a better way. There's a better way than doing it this way, because this way is just, it adds so much clutter, it adds so much bloat to the code, it makes it hard to read, it makes it confusing. It's just not the right way. There's got to be a better way to do that. So we're going to change this as well. So this is going to be we're going to review that. We're going to review all this. In 1625, determine if this adder is actually necessary. And because ultimately I just look at this and say, well, can't we just operate on the core data? Why does it need to be to the adder? Yeah. All right, so we're gonna stop right there, and I'm just gonna take a little break. And this was good progress. It was really just we're doing a broad review of the entire server file, and then we're just noting little things, specific tasks, and you know, you start off broad and then you become more specific, and then as you trim, it becomes easier to trim. You know, it's like if you have a really overgrown yard, you don't just bring out the lawnmower first. You gotta like bring out the machete, chop up the tree stumps. You know what I'm saying? You gotta get some roots out of the way, etc., etc., to make way. Yeah. So I think what we'll do, actually, we're gonna put it in a different spot. The biggest impact change that we were gonna do was, I think, up here, and that's what we want to do first, because any big chunks we can take out first. It's like you're inspecting dirt. You got a lot of dirt, you're looking for gold, and if you can, like, you know, determine that there's a large section of dirt that has no gold in it, you can just get rid of that dirt from your pool of dirt, and then you never have to look through that section of dirt again. So looking through the rest of it, which is the remainder of what you have now that you remove that big chunk, is going to be a lot faster, and it improves the speed of the process of reviewing the file, because this 60 lines is going to be gone, and we're not going to have to look through the 60 lines anymore. So we're going to take care of that first, and I would say, is that it? The section I was thinking of, yes, I must have. So that was where we stopped at the line by line. So that's pretty much where we ended up like working at too. So that's kind of cool, because we kind of picked up where we left off. But yeah, oh yeah, and this transfer list, we didn't add the to do. We did add it in the main things to do, but I guess I'll add it here as well, just to make sure I don't forget about it. This will probably be the biggest one, so we'll start here and then work our way down. How about that? Yeah, we'll just work from the top. That makes sense. So we'll say below section, and we'll just say below transfer section. This is going to be cool. I'm pretty confident this is going to go bye-bye completely. Review entire section as determined to be unnecessary after moderate review. We'll just say, see things to do. Yeah, and then if we determine, if determined unnecessary, delete. And you know I love deleting that code. That's my favorite thing. Alright, so let's go ahead and so we stopped here now. So I think I deleted my other stopped here. Just put that right here. And next, do immediately below to do task. Task. True. Okay. Alright, so we're gonna stop there. Progress, honestly, started off real slow. My mind was like not working. It was just really, I don't know, not working correctly. So specifically, we changed the name of the apply received data to handle, what is this? What's this noise over here? With this here. I don't know. Anyway. Alright, yeah, so we did it. So we changed the name of the apply received data to handle since it was handling more than just one function. Oh yeah, and we're probably not going to use the we're probably not going to use this function, and we need to review its necessity in client, I think. Yeah, we'll take care of it. It's on the to-do list. It'll pop up. It's not a big deal. We won't forget about it. So they stopped at line number, what's this, 295. Line number 295 in server.py. And began working on, well, really, we began working on adding the remove, or what do you call it, depopulate something to server.py and client.py, but realized we may not need it. Sidetracked into sectional review of server.py, added many to-do list items throughout the file while reviewing necessity of associated sections and specific lines of code. And then, yeah, and we stopped at 295 in server, and that is indeed it. So that was part 18. This is 3, we'll say 319. So we did 2 hours exactly, which is pretty good. So let's review this. We had game testing, debugging, review, part 18, 8:16:25, 118 to 319. That's 2 hours. Generally, we continue debugging, reviewing the game to test it. Specifically, we changed the name of apply received data to handle received data. Since we'll be handling more than just one function, correct, began working on adding depopulate sent data storage function to server, but realized we may not need it. Sidetracked into sectional review of server.py, added many to-do list items throughout the file while reviewing necessity of associated sections and specific lines of code. And 8:16:25, we stopped at line 295 in server, and that is indeed correct. Then we're going to stage commit and push our changes. So let's go ahead and copy this. We're going to open up terminal, get to the root of the project, which we are there, git branch, make sure we're on the right branch. We're going to get add dot, and then we're going to do git commit -m, paste in this devlog entry, which is our commit 5 files changed, 15 insertions, 14 deletions. We renamed that file. Now we're going to get push it up to the remote GitHub repository, and yeah, there we go. Alright, so that's gonna be it. Close this out. We need to make a local backup, so let's open this here. I gotta piss again. That's just the way it is, dude. So now we're gonna create a local backup, and apparently we haven't done that in 3 days. I don't think that's true. It doesn't seem right. We're going into the current project, copying the existing directory for the project. Now we're pasting that into the local backup folder directory, and then we check to make sure it is indeed been done correctly, and that is the new version of the game, and it is. So now we have a local backup as well, just in case, you know, something happens and we lose our cloud version, and then oh no, the project is gone forever. All that work over the course of, you know, a long time, it's just goodbye. We don't want it. We don't want to lose all that. So I'm gonna go eat a little snack. Actually, it's kind of late. I'll just probably eat like quote unquote dinner, and I'm I think I'm gonna come back and do more. Actually, we'll come back, do a little more session. I don't know. Maybe I'll take a break. We'll see. Anyway,